Welcome back to Between Two FARS. I'm Warneke Miller and continuing our discussion with Robert Tepfer and Michael Mark. And we'd like to talk to you a little bit today about the use of OCI plans during contract administration. Let's just get started very broadly. Michael, what's an OCI plan and how is it used in contract administration?
Okay, an OCI plan, an organizational conflict of interest plan, is a document that the contractor puts together that outlines the processes that it will follow to train its people on OCIs, and also we require on personal conflicts of interest too, particularly if they're doing work that is closely associated with inherently governmental functions, which is for another episode maybe. So they train their people. How are they going to do refresher training? What are the processes they're going to use to identify work on their contract and work that they're doing elsewhere or contemplating doing elsewhere that could raise a conflict of interest, either an actual or a potential conflict, because the rules are if it's a potential, it also has to be addressed. And then it usually has a laundry list of things that the company can do to address that potential conflict or actual conflict. So it talks about how they're going to pulse the company, how their management is going to raise it up, and how they're going to notify us, and what kinds of courses of action they will take to address the problem. And it is up to the contracting officer to either agree or disagree with those proposed solutions. And these are generally done on task order contracts, and that we have a lot of that in our large support services contracts here at Langley. OCI plan actually is.
What does Langley do with these OCI plans during contract administration? How are they used?
Well, obviously we have them, and if they were not reviewed as part of the award process, they have to be reviewed afterwards to see whether they're acceptable. So our office is involved in doing that, and it's usually an iterative process back and forth. Once the plan is there, I know I keep them in my computer for the contracts that I know I'm going to work with, because as task orders come through, and we don't see every single task order, obviously, we can look to see, okay, have they done an OCI review? Because one of the things they have to do is say, okay, we've looked at this and either it does or does not present an OCI. And that's in the templates that we require for their analysis of how they're going to do the work. You know, they have to propose to the work under the task order. And one of the things that they have to do is tell us, did they do an OCI review and what did it find? And if they did find something, then it's okay, what are you doing about it? And those come down to our office usually for a look as well to see, do we agree that this will be an effective solution? It often is, but if it's not, then we will engage with the contracting officer and, if need be, with the company to address the problem.
Now, is this done on an ad hoc basis as issues arrive, or at regularly scheduled intervals?
For most contracts, it's done ad hoc, and we have one contract I've mentioned before where we do what we call an OCI docket review, and that stemmed from a merger that created enormous OCIs, and this is more than 10 years ago now. But we've kept that requirement in that contract. And so what we do there is we have a clause in the contract that requires the contractor twice, it's now twice a year, originally it was quarterly, and we decided that's too often. And the company comes in and they bring their program manager. That company often brings their president in and people in their business management shop, and they give us a presentation. It's usually a PowerPoint set of charts. It has, you know, what the requirement is, and then it goes through, okay, here's the work we're doing right now on your contract and the OCI issues, and they do red, yellow, green. Here's the work that we are proposing to obtain, you know, RFPs, IFBs, things like that, and whether we're a prime or a sub, and whether we believe it creates a conflict. So it tells us who the prime or sub is, if they're the sub, what the agency is, what the work being proposed is, and whether it creates a conflict of interest under our contract. And then they also do that for work that they're thinking about doing. And again, they have this red, yellow, green. Now, we consider that to be an extremely proprietary document to them. So they hand it out around the table when we're doing these. but I give mine back to the company, and only the contracting officer keeps one copy, and it goes into a locked file cabinet. We do this twice a year, and there have been issues. I mean, sometimes they have said, yeah, this one, we were looking at it and it's presenting a problem, and we've decided we're not going to do it because we owe you the duty of performing that contract. Sometimes they say, we really would like to do this work. Is there a way we can figure out to make it happen? Sometimes we're able to work it, sometimes we're not. Contractors often believe firewalls solve all problems, and they don't. They don't solve problems for things like impaired objectivity in particular. And they may or may not be good on things like biased ground rules, where they're basically writing the specification. I don't believe, for the most part, that a firewall really helps, because they've already set the ground rules, and even if they have another unit proposing the work, it doesn't really solve that problem. But this docket review, we have found to be very helpful, and I think I've mentioned before, the company originally did not like it, but gradually they came around and they realized, you know, this forces us to talk to everybody in the company, all of the units within the company across all of our operating locations. And as a result, our management has a much better idea of what's going on than they did before. And I found that interesting, and one of their lawyers told me that. So there is a process we follow. We have clauses. Langley has some fairly prescriptive clauses as to what goes into an OCI plan, and we have a clause for this docket review, but we've only done it on this one contract, and it's our largest support service contract. It's a large 9-figure contract that supports most of the research activity on center, with the exception of 1 or 2 directorates. It also supports the NESC. And that creates huge conflicts of interest because of the nature of what the NESC does. They're looking at all kinds of things. So we have access to information issues. We may have where our company is actually supporting tests that are now being analyzed by the NESC, and that can create problems. So we do have a lot of issues on that contract.
I thought this was an excellent issue, because I think we should all be doing something similar to this, because it gives us all a wake-up call. There's not much point in creating a plan that's really well thought out at the inception and then forgetting about it during contract administration. I think that can occur very easily, because there's other issues technically that folks are focused on, and they're just not looking at that plan, and being compelled to put something together like this makes the contractor aware of it, as Michael indicated. It makes them review everything, which is absolutely critical, things that they're aware of that we're not. And I think that the clauses, making it a part of what the obligation is, obtaining the data with regard to that and showing up, is definitely something that could prevent several problems from developing over the life of the contract. I really like it.
Yep.
Yeah, we have found it to be a very helpful thing. And as I say, I think over the years, the contractor likes the process. Yes, it's a bit arduous for them, but it really does help, and it makes the contract administration much more smooth.
Well, that's something to think about. Interval reviews of OCI plans during contract administration, possibly the wave of the future here at NASA. Join us again next time between 2 FARS.